I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, embarking on a journey of danger, loyalty, and destiny, we welcome a terrific author, H.C. Smith. He has written a powerful book. It is called A Perilous Road, Companions of Fate. This novel invites readers into a world of treacherous paths and formidable challenges where every decision has profound implications. How will Hollis McNeill and his companions navigate the perils that await them? We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Austin, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind A Perilous Road.
You know, I'm probably a little unusual in that regard. Different story, I guess, than most authors. This is a story that's been in my head for a long time. I got into reading fiction, particularly fantasy fiction, because of a love of medieval history. Back in my college days, through the 80s and 90s, I did some writing of short stories just in a private journal for myself. And this story I actually conceived in the mid-90s. And never really fancied myself a writer, I guess. Just didn't think I had the skill for it. Finally, in 2005, I got the bug. I sat down and started writing this story. And I initially planned to write it as one book. A Perilous Road actually turned out to be the first half of this story. And so between 2005 and 2009, in my spare time, working my job and raising a family, etc., I wrote this down, just kept plugging away. And then finally, in 2009, I had two books. I had A Perilous Road and A Fighter's Destiny. And I realized in the process of writing that I had a lot more to tell about these characters. And so that's why I decided to make it a series. And so A Perilous Road actually is just the first book of several that I have planned.
Let's give the folks at home an overview of what A Perilous Road is about.
Okay. It's set in medieval times, in a fictitious fantasy world, where, people ride horses and wagons and, protect themselves with swords and bows. And four adventuring friends are hired by Hollis McNeill, a wealthy merchant. He lives in a place in the far north of the kingdom, snowy, cold winters. He's made a fortune over the years in transporting goods. He has mercantiles, several throughout the kingdom, and he buys and sells and transports goods. And he hires these four adventurers to protect him and his entourage as they embark on a journey to the south, to the city of Queens. It's the capital of the kingdom. That is actually the first half of his journey. He is planning himself to move to a place called the Twin Cities, which is even further south. And he wants them to escort him and his people to the city of Queens by road, where he will sail on to the Twin Cities. Now, that part of it, of the journey from the capital to the Twin Cities, is what is entailed in book 2, A Fighter's Destiny. So A Perilous Road actually will cover the first half of this journey.
How many books are you envisioning in this series in all?
I'm working on my third now, and I've got enough material that I'm planning on probably 4 and 5, probably at least 5 books.
Wonderful, wonderful. Have you envisioned A Perilous Road and its sequels and the whole series perhaps as a TV series or a series of movies?
Actually, yes, I think, and I don't want to sound like I'm gloating, but I've thought since I started this, writing this as a very inexperienced writer, I felt like this would probably make as good, or maybe a better screenplay than a book. Actually, I think a lot of my inspiration from the visuals I have in my mind of the characters as I write their dialogue and their relationship evolving with each other comes from a lot of movies that I've watched over the years.
Yeah, I think it would be a great, great series of films myself. It's very, very visual. It's set in an era that people are very intrigued by, very, very popularized right now with Game of Thrones and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think For sure. There's a niche out there for this work, and seeing it on the big screen or even a series of films on Amazon Prime or Netflix. Tell us a little bit about Hollis McNeill and how you developed his character and who inspired you to create this man.
This is a guy that's kind of bigger than life. He's a self-made man, started in humble beginnings. A little bit of this comes out in the book as in conversation as he's talking to other parties, members of the party. But he was raised with loving parents who didn't have a lot, but he determined to work hard and achieve what he wanted. Found his niche in life, the freighting business. It just grew from there, and he's become a wealthy man, but he's a very humble, wealthy man, very considerate of other people. You'll see times during the story where he, is quick to lend a hand to the downtrodden. He essentially hasn't forgotten where he came from. He's just a very likable character. I guess you might compare him maybe to some of John Wayne's characters that he's played in Westerns over the years.
Yeah, larger than life, John Wayne, Harrison Ford, Clint Eastwood, a real
Yeah,
man's man, if you will,
right.
which we need more of in both literature and in film and TV today, I'd say.
That's
I
right.
guess Chris Pine is about as close as we get today. He plays a lot of these roles,
Yeah.
and he can be pretty good, that's for sure.
Mhm.
What challenges did you encounter in crafting the perilous setting of the Eastern Kingdom?
The story itself, as I started writing it, I kind of drew not only on many movies. I'm a big fan of Western movies, and unfortunately, there's not as many of those out there. But movies made about the medieval time. I think I might have been born in the wrong century because I long for a simpler time. When people rode horses and people didn't have to keep deadlines, and there wasn't the internet and phones and things like that. And so as I visualized this world, I kind of drew in on some of the things that I've seen in movies over the years, books that I've read. I traveled a lot as a young child growing up. I was blessed. My family traveled a lot, so I saw a lot of America. I've had jobs over the years where I traveled to, and so I've seen a lot of beautiful scenery, and I would draw on that when it came time to describe a specific setting that the members of the party were traveling through.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tell us a little bit about the Shadow Knight.
The Shadow Knight is he has turned evil, and he started out as a paladin he was a knight from another kingdom that neighbors the Eastern Kingdom where this story is set. The travelers that my four adventurers and Hollis and his entourage, they encounter another person, actually a fifth stranger that they hire to travel with them. And it turns out that he knows the Shadow Knight, knows his true identity. Actually, they grew up together. And he actually has, I guess you'd say, a grudge to maybe settle with the Shadow Knight. And so, as the story goes, and he doesn't actually appear for a while during the story, he's talked about, but actually his first appearance is a little ways into the book. Once he does, it's kind of to call out this ex-friend of his, and so this grudge kind of builds through the story towards the end. And then in book two, you'll get to know a lot more about how it was he came to fall from his knighthood and become the evil Shadow Knight.
Wonderful. Is this your first foray into writing? I know you said that the story has been in your head since the 90s. Is this the first time you actually stopped and put something down on paper?
Yeah, as far as a full-length novel, I've written short stories. I started with, very short, simple 1 or 2 page stories, and then went to stories of a few thousand words. A lot of them were based in, medieval fantasy times, that type of setting. And so, but this is definitely the first time that I sat down attempting to write a full-length novel. And the funny thing is, when I started this, I worried that I wouldn't have enough material to make a book.
Mhm.
And quickly on, as I started writing this, I realized that it was growing bigger than me, and I was going to have plenty. And then I realized, in fact, that it was going to have to be split into 2 books.
And now maybe three, four, five books, right?
Yeah, as
Yeah.
I realized there was more that I wanted to do with these characters, I fell in love with them. And to be honest, the character development is probably my favorite part of the writing. Uh,
Mm.
the description of the scenery and the towns they go through and things like that is great, but I really enjoy developing the characters.
Do you base them on people you know or stars? Is a little bit Charlton Heston, a little bit of John Wayne, a little bit of Burt Reynolds?
Yeah, a little bit, as far as visually, when I started writing, wanting to make a full-length novel, I started reading everything I could to make myself
Mm.
better. And I read some biographies from accomplished authors, and more than one of those mentioned, that an aid that they use is as they're developing a character in a book is to imagine somebody they've seen on the screen that maybe kind of looks like them or acts the way we envision our character acting. And so I have used bits from other movies in my mind, things I've seen to develop an attitude or a certain mannerisms maybe that a character has.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you were going to cast Hollis McNeill, who's your first choice? Let's say it's fantasy. You can pick anybody out of history. You kind of said John Wayne, but let's move John Wayne out of there. Who else would you
Yeah.
cast?
The funny thing is, I said I started writing this in 2005, and at that time, I had the perfect person picked out for him. He's a little bit too old for that now, but Tom Selleck was,
Oh yeah, yeah.
so the
He's the
funny thing.
last cowboy, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing. Between since John Wayne and Clint, maybe Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott are my
Yeah.
favorite Western cowboys. But they're all a little bit too old for that role. So I would think maybe Gerard Butler would make
Yep.
a good one. He's about the right age as far as Hollis's age in the story. He's a very accomplished actor. I've seen him play tough guys. I've seen him do comedy. Uh,
Mm.
so he probably would be my pick.
Also with AI now, any actor can be any age. I mean,
Yeah,
they tried it a little bit in The Irishman. They've tried it in a little bit of the latest Indiana Jones installment. But
yeah,
eventually it's going to get so good. You could have John Wayne in that movie and you'd never know it wasn't John Wayne. And I think that's going to be a fascinating time. I know actors like me are very reluctant to embrace AI technology. And there is a downside, of course, but there's
yeah.
also an upside is that there could be a new Cary Grant film. There can be a young Tom Selleck starring in The Perilous Road.
Yeah,
That's pretty exciting.
right. Yeah.
It's almost like animation, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
can bring it to life, and I think that's fantastic. How
Yeah.
many hours a day do you spend writing? Is it like a routine for you? Do you do it every day at a certain time?
Unfortunately, it's not. Back at the time I was writing these two books, I had a job with a very set schedule. And so I was able to get in some time, usually every evening, a little bit more on a couple of nights a week, a little bit on a weekend, maybe a Sunday afternoon. Now things are different for me. I've retired from teaching and I have another full-time job with a lot of travel.
Mhm.
Um, I'm usually gone about half the week. And so, I've learned I have to fit my writing in, when I can.
Yeah. Well, that's your refuge when you get to
Yes,
your laptop and start writing, I'm sure, and live in
absolutely.
that world and live in
Yeah,
that world again.
I'm not a TV watcher anymore.
Yeah.
My enjoyment is either reading or writing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's instead of watching somebody else's creation, you're creating your own. And while
Yeah.
you're writing it, you're living in that world. I mean, when I write, I usually get up very early in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Uh,
And I really feel like if I'm writing something back in the 80s, I'm in the 80s, or if I'm writing something that's taking place in the future, I'm living in this futuristic world because that's what you have to do in
yeah,
order to make it feel real, right?
I agree. Absolutely. I put myself in the place of this character, or if it's a bit of dialogue between characters, a little encounter that they're having, I imagine myself right there involved in that.
Absolutely. A.C. Smith has written a wonderful series of books. The first two are available right now. The first one is called A Perilous Road, Companions of Fate. Book number two is called what, Austin?
It's a fighter's destiny, and it's not out yet. It's under
Okay.
contract and will be going. It will be in production this year, probably summer or fall of 2024. It will be ready.
Awesome. Coming to a bookstore near you, virtual or real, in summer or fall 2024. Looking forward to it. Austin, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.